pulled into the driveway at 6:47 p.m., 13 minutes late because traffic on the interstate had backed up near the exit. I texted an apology before I even turned off the engine. No response. I sat there for a moment, watching the warm light spilling from the dining room windows, the kind of staged glow that comes from candles and recessed fixtures set to intimate. The house looked like a magazine spread. It always did now. I grabbed the bottle of wine from the passenger seat, a Pinot Noir I'd picked up because the son's spouse had mentioned liking reds, and walked up the stone pathway. The porch light flickered on before I reached the door, motion activated, making me feel like an intruder approaching my own family's gathering. The door opened before I could knock. My son stood there, dressed in what I'd started calling his casual professional uniform, pressed chinos, a button-down with the sleeves rolled just so, loafers without socks. He was 32, but carried himself like someone running for office. "Dad," he said, not quite smiling. "You made it." "Traffic was hell," I said, offering the wine. He took it without looking at the label. "Yeah, we figured." He stepped aside to let me in. "Everyone's already at the table." The house smelled like rosemary and something caramelized. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. I followed him through the foyer, past the gallery wall of family photos that somehow included fewer pictures of me each time I visited, and into the open-concept living space that flowed into the dining area. That's when I saw it. The table was set for 8. Place cards in careful calligraphy marked each seat, candles in mercury glass holders, cloth napkins folded into some complicated shape I didn't have a name for, wine glasses catching the light, everything positioned with the precision of a professional staging. 8 place settings. I counted the people: my son, his spouse, my ex-wife, her current husband, my son's 2 kids, and my daughter who'd flown in from Denver. That made 7. I was the 8th person expected, but there were only 7 settings. I stood there in the archway, still holding my jacket, processing what I was seeing. My daughter noticed me first and gave a small wave, her smile uncertain. The others looked up, a brief pause in their conversation, then continued talking. No one stood, no one made space. My son's spouse, I'll call her Vanessa because that's her name and she'd chosen this particular battlefield, rose gracefully and came over. She was dressed like she was about to attend a charity gala, silk blouse, statement necklace, hair that had definitely been professionally blown out that afternoon. "Oh, you're here." She air-kissed near my cheek, her perfume sharp and expensive. "We weren't sure you'd make it." "I texted I was running late," I said. "Did you?" "I didn't see it." She had her phone in her hand, visibly dismissing the notification that was probably sitting right there. I looked past her at the table again, hoping I'd miscounted. I hadn't. "Should I?" I gestured vaguely at the empty wall space near the kitchen island where a folding chair leaned. My son appeared beside me, holding a bottle of sparkling water. "We didn't think you'd notice," he said. His tone was light, almost joking, but his eyes weren't. The room went very quiet then. Even the kids stopped talking. "Notice what?" I asked, though I knew. Everyone knew. That we're one short on the settings. He tilted his head slightly, that same expression he'd used since he was 16 when he thought he was being clever. "It's not a big deal. You can grab that chair if you want. Or there's space at the counter." The counter, where they'd put out the appetizer plates earlier, now empty except for crumbs and used cocktail napkins. My ex-wife looked down at her plate. Her husband studied his wine glass like it contained secrets. My daughter opened her mouth, then closed it. The kids, thank God, went back to coloring on the placemat activity sheets someone had printed out for them. Vanessa touched my arm. "It's just we finalized the count this morning, and you didn't think I'd notice I wasn't counted," I finished. "It's been hard to track your schedule lately," my son said. "You're not always available." That was categorically untrue. I'd responded to every text, every email, every last-minute "can you watch the kids" request. I'd shown up to every recital, every game, every birthday party. I'd been available to the point of pathetic. But I didn't say any of that. "I'll stand," I said. I moved to the kitchen island, setting my jacket on the counter. From this angle, I could see everyone at the table, but I was distinctly separate, not part of the circle. A satellite. Vanessa brought me a plate, not one of the good china plates from the table, but a regular ceramic one, the kind you'd use for leftovers. She served me from the dishes in the kitchen, her movements efficient. "There's plenty," she said brightly. The lamb came out perfect. I ate standing up, fork in one hand, my phone in my pocket, buzzing with a notification I could feel but couldn't check without making it obvious I was checking it. The conversation at the table resumed, flowing around me like I was a rock in a stream. They talked about the remodel they were planning for the kitchen. News to me. They talked about the kids' private school applications. Also news to me. They talked about a family vacation they were considering for spring break. No one asked if I wanted to come. I finished eating in about 10 minutes, then spent another 15 pretending to be interested in my phone while I figured out my exit strategy. My daughter caught my eye once and looked like she might get up, but my son said something to her and she stayed seated. At 7:52, I decided I'd done my time. "I've got an early morning," I announced to the room. "Thanks for dinner." "Already?" Vanessa's voice carried just the right note of disappointed surprise. "We haven't even done dessert." "I'm sure it'll be great," I said. "Thanks for having me." My son walked me to the door, a performance of courtesy. At the threshold, he put his hand on my shoulder, brief, firm, the kind of touch you'd give a colleague. "We'll see you at Max's game next week?" he asked. "If I'm on the schedule," I said. He smiled then, a small winner's smile. "We'll send you the details." I walked to my car, got in, closed the door, sat there for a moment with my hands on the wheel. The house behind me glowed warm and perfect. I could see them through the window, back at the table, laughing at something. Vanessa took a picture, holding up her phone, everyone leaning in. The flash went off twice. I started the engine. My phone buzzed again. I checked it at the first stoplight. A notification from Instagram. Vanessa had posted the photo. The caption read, "Family dinner with my favorites." She'd tagged everyone, except me. I scrolled to see the full image. 8 people around the table, perfect composition, golden light, everyone smiling. I wasn't in it. Not cropped out, just never there. I pulled into a drugstore parking lot 4 blocks away and called the one person who'd understand. She answered on the second ring. "How was it?" "They didn't set a place for me," I said. Silence. Then, "What?" "There were 8 people, 7 settings. They told me I could use the folding chair or stand at the counter." "You're not serious." "I ate standing up like I was catering my own kid's dinner party." More silence. When she spoke again, her voice had that edge it got when she was working through a problem. My partner, I'll call her Lisa because that's her name and she'd earned the right to be in this story, worked in risk management for a medical device company. She thought in systems and gaps and exposures. "If they're bold enough to erase you in public," she said slowly, "they already erased you on paper." "What does that mean?" "It means you need to check your paperwork, everything, bank accounts, properties, trusts, insurance. If they're this comfortable humiliating you in front of the family, they've already decided you're out. The dinner was just the announcement." I sat there in my car, engine running, watching a teenager push a line of shopping carts across the parking lot. "I don't even know what to look for," I said. "Then we find someone who does." I drove home, the modest 3-bedroom ranch I'd bought 2 years ago after the divorce, the one with the decent yard and the mortgage I could actually afford, and went straight to my office. I kept files, years of them. I worked in facilities management for a commercial property company, maintaining office buildings and retail centers. Documentation was how I survived. Paper trails, maintenance logs, incident reports, proof of everything. I pulled out the folder I kept for family financial items. Joint accounts that weren't really joint anymore. The college fund I'd set up when my son was born. The property we'd bought together as an investment. A duplex near the university that was supposed to be his someday. I started going through it. 20 minutes in, I found the first irregularity. The quarterly statement for the Duplex LLC showed a recent member meeting I hadn't been notified about. The address they had on file for me was my old apartment from 3 years ago, the one I'd moved out of before I'd even bought this house. I checked my email. No notices, no meeting minutes, no votes. I pulled up the property records online. You could access them through the county assessor's website. The ownership structure had changed 6 months ago. I was still listed, but now as a passive member. I'd never agreed to that designation. I'd never even heard that term before tonight. I called Lisa back. "I found something," I said. "Already?" "The duplex property. They changed my status without telling me. Used an old address so I wouldn't get the notices." "That's not legal." "I don't know if it is or isn't. That's the problem." She was quiet for a moment. "Do you have a lawyer?" "I have a real estate guy I used when I bought this place." "You need someone who handles family law and business disputes. Someone who thinks like they do." "I don't even know what like they do means." "It means someone who understands that the worst thing about betrayal isn't what they take. It's how they make you feel crazy for noticing." I sat there at my desk, surrounded by file folders and old tax returns and documents I'd kept, because I was the kind of person who kept documents. "I have a name," Lisa said. "Someone I worked with on a contract dispute last year. She's expensive, but she's mean. In the good way." How mean? The kind of mean that makes corporate attorneys nervous. Give me her number. She texted it over. I stared at it for a long moment, my thumb hovering over the screen. Calling a lawyer made this real, made this a fight. But standing at that counter tonight, eating lamb off a leftover plate while my family sat at a table I wasn't invited to, that had already made it real. I sent the text. My name is Daniel Greer. Lisa Hoffman gave me your number. I need to talk to someone about what I think might be a problem with some family property issues. Could I set up a consultation this week? The response came back in under 2 minutes. Tomorrow, 4 p.m. Bring every document you have. I looked around my office. I'd need a bigger folder. Before I went to bed, I checked my phone one more time. The family group chat, the one we'd had for years, the one where we coordinated holidays and shared photos, had a new name. It used to be Greer Family. Now it said Greer Family, Maine. I clicked on the member list. I was still in it. But my contact card had been changed. Instead of Dad, it now said Dan, old number. My number hadn't changed in 8 years. I screenshot the group info, saved it to a new folder on my phone I titled Records, and turned off the light. Tomorrow, I'd start building the case. Tonight, I just needed to accept that my son had been right about one thing I had noticed, and now I couldn't unknow what I knew. While you're here, hit the hype button, don't forget to subscribe, and support this channel with a like. And tell us below, have you ever faced something like this? The lawyer's office was in a converted Victorian downtown, the kind of building that had been painted a dusty blue and filled with expensive furniture that was supposed to look casual. I arrived at 3:55 p.m., carrying a canvas bag stuffed with file folders, my laptop, and a legal pad where I'd written a timeline starting with the dinner. The receptionist, a young guy with architectural glasses and a nose ring, checked me in and offered me water from a glass dispenser with cucumber slices floating in it. I took a cup I didn't drink from and sat in a leather chair that was too low to be comfortable. At exactly 4, a woman in her late 40s appeared from a hallway. She was tall, wearing a charcoal suit with no jewelry except small pearl earrings. Her handshake was brief and firm. Mr. Greer, I'm Patricia Mendoza. Come on back. Her office had exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and a desk that looked like it had been made from a single piece of walnut. She gestured to a chair across from her and sat down, folding her hands on the desk. Lisa speaks highly of you, she said. She speaks highly of you, too. Good. Let's skip the part where we pretend this is going to be pleasant and get to what happened. I liked her already. I started with the dinner. She listened without interrupting, her expression neutral. When I got to the part about the missing place setting and the counter, she made a note on the legal pad in front of her. And your son said, we didn't think you'd notice, she repeated. Yes. Interesting choice of words. Not we ran out of space or we miscounted. He assumed you wouldn't notice being excluded. I guess. It's not a guess, Mr. Greer. That's a tell. It means they've been testing boundaries for a while, and this was the next escalation. She leaned back in her chair. What happened after the dinner? I told her about the property records, the LLC meeting I hadn't been notified about, the old address they had on file. I pulled out the folder and slid the quarterly statement across the desk. She studied it for a moment, then looked up. Do you have the original operating agreement? I did. I'd brought everything. She spent the next 20 minutes going through the documents, occasionally making notes, asking precise questions about dates and signatures and who had been present when things were signed. Her questions weren't aggressive, but they were detailed. She wanted to know how mail was handled, who had keys to the property, when I'd last received a distribution check. The check stopped 4 months ago, I said. I thought maybe there was a repair or something eating into the income. Did you ask? I texted my son. He said they were handling some maintenance issues and it would normalize. But you weren't copied on any contractor invoices or repair estimates. No, because you weren't supposed to know what the money was actually being used for. She made another note. Here's what I think is happening, she said, and I want to be clear. I'm speculating based on what you've shown me so far. We'll need to do more digging to confirm. I nodded. They're repositioning you from an active member to a passive investor. Changing your classification means changing your rights. Active members get voting power, access to information, say in major decisions. Passive members get whatever the active members decide to give them, if anything. Can they do that without my signature? Not legally, but if they file the paperwork with an old address and you never receive the notices, and if enough time passes that the statutory period for objection runs out, they can argue you had the opportunity to object and didn't. That's fraud. Maybe, or it's sloppy record keeping. That's what they'll say if you challenge it. She tapped her pen against the desk. The question is what else they've changed. This is never just one document. What do you mean? People don't suddenly decide to cut you out of one thing. They decide to cut you out, period. Then they execute the plan across everything you're connected to. We need to look at bank accounts, insurance policies, beneficiary designations, any trusts, powers of attorney, healthcare directives if you signed any, business entities, shared credit cards, authorized users on accounts, anything where your name appears next to theirs. I felt something cold settle in my chest. How long would that take? To check? A few weeks if we're thorough. To fix? If things have been changed improperly? Months to years, depending on how cooperative they decide to be. And if they're not cooperative? She smiled then, thin and professional. Then we make it expensive for them to keep fighting. We spent the next hour going through the rest of what I'd brought. She gave me assignments. Pull credit reports, request account statements, contact the insurance company for policy details, get copies of trust documents from the attorney who drafted them originally. She wrote everything down on a task list and handed me a copy. One more thing, she said as I was packing up my bag. Don't tell them you've talked to a lawyer. Why not? Because right now they think you're still playing the old game. The one where they push and you accept it because you want access to your grandkids. The one where you're the reasonable one who doesn't make waves. I am reasonable. I know. But reasonable people still deserve to be counted, and they've decided you don't count. I left her office at 5:47 p.m. and sat in my car for a few minutes, staring at the task list. It felt surreal, like I'd been handed homework for a class I didn't remember enrolling in. I started the engine and drove home. Lisa was already there when I arrived. She'd let herself in. I'd given her a key 3 months ago, and was sitting at the kitchen table with takeout containers from the Thai place we both liked. "How'd it go?" she asked. I dropped the bag on the counter and sat down. She thinks they're repositioning me out of everything, not just the duplex. Lisa opened one of the containers and pushed it toward me. What did she say to do? Pull records. Lots of them. She gave me a list. Then we start tonight. You don't have to? Yes, I do. We ate while I pulled up account logins on my laptop. First stop, the credit monitoring service I'd signed up for years ago and barely checked. I logged in and requested the full report. It loaded slowly, page after page of open accounts and credit inquiries and public records. Most of it was what I expected. The mortgage on this house, a car loan I'd paid off last year, a couple of credit cards I barely used. Then I saw it. A joint account at a regional bank I'd opened with my son 10 years ago when he was in college. We'd used it for shared expenses back then, textbooks, rent, groceries. After he graduated, we'd stopped using it, but never closed it. The balance had been maybe $300 the last time I'd checked, which had been at least 2 years ago. The current balance, $0. I clicked for more details. There had been a steady stream of withdrawals over the past 18 months. Small amounts at first, 50 here, 100 there, then larger chunks in the last 6 months. The final withdrawal, 3 weeks ago, had cleaned it out completely. 8,200. Lisa. She came over and looked at the screen. When did you last access this account? I don't even remember. Years. Did you authorize any of these? No. She scrolled through the transaction history. These are all ATM withdrawals and online transfers. No checks. Someone with your login information could have done this without you knowing. I would have gotten statements. To what address? I clicked over to the account profile page. The mailing address on file was my son's house. The email address was one I didn't recognize, a Gmail account with my first name and a bunch of numbers. That's not my email, I said. Of course it's not. Lisa's voice was tight. They changed it so you wouldn't get notifications. I took a screenshot and added it to the records folder on my phone. What else? She asked. I pulled up my insurance accounts. I'd kept it all these years, paying the premiums automatically from my checking account. I logged into the insurance company portal and navigated to the policy details. Beneficiary, my son. That was correct. That had always been the plan. But there was a secondary beneficiary listed now, added 8 months ago, Vanessa. I'd never authorized that change. I clicked for the change request form. It had been filed electronically, with a digital signature that was supposed to be mine. I pulled up the PDF. The signature looked close. Similar enough that a system would probably accept it, but it wasn't quite right. The way the G curved, the spacing of the letters, it was consistent, too consistent, like someone had traced it or used a signature stamp. Jesus, Lisa said quietly. I made another note, pulled another screenshot. We went through everything I could access that night. Bank accounts, credit cards, the retirement account from my old job that I'd rolled into an IRA, the small brokerage account I'd opened to invest the money from selling the marital house. Most of it was untouched, but the threads we did find were damning. The retirement account beneficiary designation had been updated 6 months ago. Originally, it was split between my son and my daughter. Now it was 80% to my son, 20% to Vanessa. My daughter wasn't listed. The brokerage account had a new authorized user, my son, added 4 months ago. The email notifications for my credit cards had been rerouted to an address I didn't control, added 2 months ago. Each change was small, defensible on its own, but together they painted a picture. "They're erasing you," Lisa said finally. "Not erasing, repositioning." "What's the difference?" "Erasing would be taking me off everything. This is more surgical. They're making sure that when I'm gone, when I die, or when I'm too old to care, everything goes to them. And they're setting it up so I won't notice until it's too late to challenge it." "And the dinner?" "The dinner was them testing whether I'd fight back." "Are you going to?" I closed my laptop and looked at her. I don't want a war with my own kid. "This isn't about what you want. This is about what they've already decided." She was right. I knew she was right. I forwarded everything to Patricia with a subject line that read, "Found more issues, attaching screenshots." She responded in under an hour. "Good. Keep looking. And save everything. Screenshots aren't enough. We need official statements and change request forms. File public records requests if you have to. Discovery is going to be crucial." The next morning, I called the bank. It took 3 transfers and 40 minutes on hold before I reached someone who could access the joint account history. "I need copies of all the change request forms for this account," I said. "I can mail those to the address on file." "No, I need them sent to a different address, and I need them certified." There was a pause. "Is there a legal matter involved, sir?" "There might be." "In that case, you'll need to submit a formal request with a notarized letter explaining the situation. We can process that within 10 business days." I drafted the letter that afternoon and had it notarized at the UPS store. I sent the same request to the insurance company, the brokerage, and the property management company that handled the duplex. Then I waited. 3 days later, I got the first response. The insurance company sent me a thick envelope with copies of the beneficiary change forms. The digital signature on the change request was mine, or close enough to pass a basic review, but the IP address that had submitted the form was logged. It wasn't mine. I didn't recognize it. Patricia requested that I authorize her to hire a forensic IT consultant to track the IP. I signed the authorization. On Thursday, 5 days after the dinner, I got a text from my daughter. "Can we talk?" I called her. She answered immediately. "Dad, what's going on?" "What do you mean?" "Brandon told me you're making problems, that you're upset about something with the duplex, and you're threatening legal action. Brandon, my son. The one who hadn't used the name I'd given him since high school when he'd decided Brandon sounded more professional than Brad." "I'm not threatening anything," I said carefully. "I'm asking questions about some paperwork that doesn't look right." "He said you're trying to block them from refinancing the property." "I didn't know they were refinancing the property. Nobody told me." Silence. "You weren't told?" Her voice changed slightly. Less defensive, more confused. "No. And I'm still listed as a member of the LLC. Refinancing requires all members to sign off. Did you know they were planning to do that?" "No. I don't really keep track of Brandon's real estate stuff." "Your name's not on the property anyway, but mine is. And I wasn't notified about any meeting, any refinance, any change in management structure. That's what I'm trying to figure out." "He's going to be pissed that I called you." "Did he tell you to call me?" Another pause. "Vanessa suggested it might be good to clear the air before things got ugly." "Your brother's wife told you to call me." "Dad, I'm not trying to make this hard. But if they're changing things that legally require my signature, I need to know what's happening. That's not unreasonable." "No," she said quietly. "It's not." "Did anyone ask you to sign anything recently? Any forms, any emails, anything that had to do with the duplex or my accounts?" "No. If they do, don't sign it. Not until you read it carefully and know what it is." "You think they'd trick me?" "I think people do things under pressure that they wouldn't do otherwise. And I think Vanessa is very good at applying pressure." My daughter laughed, short and bitter. "That's true." We talked for a few more minutes, then hung up. I made a note of the conversation. Patricia had told me to document everything, every call, every text, every interaction. Memory wasn't evidence, records were. That night, Lisa and I went to my son's house, not inside, just to the street. We parked 2 houses down and watched. This feels creepy, I said. We're not breaking any laws, Lisa said. You're allowed to be on a public street. At 7:15, my son and Vanessa left the house together. They were dressed up, him in a blazer, her in a cocktail dress. They got into his Audi and drove off. A babysitter's car was parked in the driveway. Date night, Lisa said. We waited 10 minutes, then drove away. I didn't know what we were looking for. Proof of normalcy, maybe. Evidence that they were just living their lives while mine fell apart in slow motion. On the way home, my phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Hey, just wanted to check in. We missed you at Max's practice today. Everything okay? I hadn't known there was a practice today. I didn't respond. Patricia called on Friday with an update. The IP address that filed the insurance change, it traces back to a business center in a shopping plaza near your son's house, one of those co-working spaces that rents desks by the hour. So it wasn't from his home. No, someone went to a public computer to file the form, which suggests they knew it might be traceable and wanted distance. That's premeditated. Yes, it is? What now? Now we keep building the file, and we start thinking about leverage. What kind of leverage? The kind where they realize fighting you is going to cost more than cooperating with you. I thought about that after we hung up. Leverage meant exposure. It meant making this messier than they wanted it to be. It meant no more quiet rooms and private conversations. It meant I had to stop being the reasonable one. Max's soccer game was on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. I showed up at 8:45 carrying a folding chair and a travel mug of coffee. The fields were damp from overnight rain, the grass already chewed up by cleats and divots. I found the home team's sideline and set up at the far end, away from the main cluster of parents. My son and Vanessa were near midfield, standing with two other couples I vaguely recognized from previous games. Vanessa had brought a professional-looking camera with a long lens. She was wearing expensive athleisure and sunglasses that probably cost more than my car payment. Max was doing warm-up drills with his team. He saw me and waved. I waved back. He looked happy. The game started at 9:03. I watched from my chair, clapping when Max touched the ball, groaning when the other team scored. Normal parent behavior. I kept my distance. At halftime, Vanessa walked over. She was carrying a water bottle and smiling. "I'm so glad you made it," she said. "Max was asking about you." "I wouldn't miss it," I said. "We weren't sure if you got the message about the time change. Brandon said he sent it to the group chat, but sometimes things get lost." There had been no time change message. I'd checked. "I got it," I lied. "Great." She gestured back toward the other parents. "You should come stand with us. We've got extra camp chairs." "I'm good here. Thanks." "You sure? I was about to take some photos of the team, and it would be nice to get you in a few. For Max." For Max. That was the angle. Make me look like the difficult one if I refused. "Sure," I said. "Let's do it." I followed her back to the midfield cluster. The other parents greeted me with smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. My son nodded, but didn't speak. Vanessa positioned everyone, the parents forming a line behind the kids, who were hydrating and listening to their coach's halftime talk. "Perfect," Vanessa said, holding up her camera. "Everyone smile." I smiled. The shutter clicked 3 times. "Got it," she said brightly. "These are going to be great for the team website." She immediately turned to check the photos on her camera screen, holding it up to show the couple next to her. I couldn't see the display from where I stood, but I saw the woman's face, a quick flicker of something that looked like pity. The second half started. I went back to my solo chair. I didn't need to see the photo to know I'd been cropped out or placed at an awkward edge where I could be easily trimmed. After the game, they won 3-2, Max scored once. I tried to catch Max before he left. He was with his team, gathering gear and guzzling juice boxes. I waved to get his attention. He saw me and started walking over, but Vanessa intercepted him, leaning down to say something I couldn't hear. He stopped, looked at me, then nodded at whatever she'd said. She walked him to the car, her hand on his shoulder, steering him away. My son loaded the gear bag into the trunk. I walked over. "Good game," I said. "Yeah, Max played well," he replied, not looking at me. "I'd like to take him for ice cream or something, if that's okay." "We've got lunch plans, family thing." "I'm family." He finally looked at me then, and his expression was harder than I'd ever seen it. "You know what I mean?" "No, I really don't." "Dad, don't do this here." "Do what? Ask to spend time with my grandson?" Vanessa appeared at his elbow. "Everything okay?" "Fine," my son said. Dad was just leaving. "Actually," I said, "I was just asking if I could take Max for ice cream." "Oh," That's sweet, Vanessa said in a tone that made it clear she didn't think it was sweet at all. But we've got that thing today, maybe next weekend? Maybe you could check with me instead of deciding for me, I said. She blinked, the smile frozen on her face. I'm sorry? You just made plans involving my grandson without asking me if I was available or interested. We're his parents, my son said, his voice low. We make the plans. And I'm his grandfather. I'd like to be included. A few other parents were lingering nearby, packing up gear, pretending not to listen, but absolutely listening. Vanessa glanced at them, then back at me. She was calculating something. You're absolutely right, she said smoothly. We should have checked. How about we put something on the calendar for next week? Maybe Sunday afternoon? Sure, I said. Text me the details. Of course. They left. Max waved from the back seat as the car pulled away. I waved back. I packed up my chair and walked to my truck. On the way, I passed two of the parent couples from earlier. They smiled politely and kept walking. No one made eye contact. I got in my truck and checked my phone. Vanessa had already posted a photo on Instagram. It was the team shot from halftime. I scrolled to the tagged people. Max was tagged. The coach was tagged. 3 other parents were tagged. I wasn't in the photo. I clicked to her feed and scrolled back. There were dozens of photos from recent games, practices, family dinners, holidays, photos where I knew I'd been present. I remembered the moments, the conversations, the context. In every single one, I was either cropped out, positioned at the edge where I could be trimmed, or simply not included in the frame at all. It was a curated erasure, deliberate, systematic. I screenshotted the feed and added it to the records folder. Then I called Lisa. I need you to do something for me, I said. What? Follow Vanessa on Instagram. I want to see if she posts different photos publicly than what I see. You think she's blocking you? I think she's managing the narrative, and I want to know how wide it goes. Give me her handle. I sent it. 2 minutes later, Lisa called back. You're not blocked. I can see the same photos you can. So she's not hiding them from me. No. She wants you to see them. She wants you to know you're being erased. That landed differently than I expected. Not anger. Something colder. I'm coming over, Lisa said. She arrived at my house 40 minutes later with her laptop. We sat at the kitchen table and went through Vanessa's social media systematically. Instagram, Facebook, the family blog she'd started documenting their journey. Every platform told the same story, a happy family that didn't include me. Look at the comments, Lisa said, pointing at a post from 3 weeks ago. It was a photo of a family dinner, not the one where I'd been excluded, a different one. The caption read, "So grateful for our village." The comments were full of heart emojis and supportive messages, but there were also a few questions. Where's your FL? Didn't Dan usually come to these? Is everything okay with the family? Vanessa had replied to each one with variations of the same message. We're keeping things small and intimate these days. It's been really nice to focus on our immediate circle. She's creating a public record, Lisa said. If anyone asks later why you weren't around, she can point to these posts and say you weren't interested. But I was never invited. Right, but no one reading these knows that. I leaned back in my chair. She's smart. She's ruthless. That afternoon, my daughter called again. Dad, I'm going to ask you something and I need you to be honest. Okay. Did you threaten to sue Brandon? What? No. He told me you hired a lawyer to fight him over the duplex, that you're trying to force a sale to get your money out. I hired a lawyer to figure out why I wasn't notified about changes to a property I co-own. That's not the same thing as forcing a sale. But you are planning to sue him? I'm planning to protect my legal rights. If that requires legal action, then yes. But I haven't threatened anything. I've asked questions and gotten non-answers. She was quiet for a moment. He's saying you're trying to ruin his credit, that you're blocking the refinance out of spite. The refinance requires my signature as a co-owner. I can't block something I was never asked to approve. Did he tell you that part? No. Did he tell you they've been pulling money out of a joint account we haven't used in years without telling me? Or that someone changed the beneficiary on my life insurance policy without my authorization? Silence. Emma, I said, using her full name the way I used to when she was a kid and I needed her to pay attention. I know he's your brother, but something's not right here, and I need you to understand that I'm not the one making this a problem. I'm the one reacting to a problem that's already been made. What do you want me to do? Don't pick sides. Just don't let them use you to get information about me or what I'm planning. If they ask you to sign anything or agree to anything that involves me, say no until you understand what it is. They wouldn't. Emma, they already have. She hung up. I wasn't sure if she believed me or not. That night, I got a text from my son. We need to talk. In person. Just you and me. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. When and where? Tomorrow, 6 p.m. There's a coffee shop on Laurel Street near the highway. We can grab a table in the back. I'll be there. Lisa looked at the exchange over my shoulder. You're not going alone. He said just the two of us. And you think he's planning to respect that? She had a point. I'll be nearby, she said. You don't have to tell him I'm there, but I'm not letting you walk into an ambush. Sunday at 5:45 p.m., I drove to the coffee shop. It was one of those modern places with Edison bulbs and reclaimed wood tables and a menu that charged $7 for a latte. I parked in the lot and walked inside. The place was half full. My son was already there, sitting at a table in the back corner. He'd positioned himself so he could see the door. He waved me over. I ordered a black coffee, $2, no nonsense, and joined him. Thanks for coming, he said. You made it sound important. It is. He leaned forward, his voice low. Dad, you're making this really hard on everyone. What am I making hard? This whole thing with the lawyer and the property and the constant questions. It's stressing Vanessa out. The kids are picking up on the tension. The kids don't know anything's wrong unless you told them. They know you weren't at the last family dinner. They know you're barely around anymore. I wasn't at the last family dinner because I wasn't given a place setting. I'm barely around because I'm not invited. He sat back, his jaw tight. You could have stayed. You chose to make it weird by leaving early. I stood at the counter and ate while everyone else sat at the table. That was weird before I left. We had a seating plan. You were late. We'd already started. You had 8 people in 7 settings. I was counted as present and then erased. Jesus, Dad, do you hear yourself? Erased? It was a seating arrangement. Then why did Vanessa post a photo where I wasn't in it? Why did she tag everyone but me? Why did she tell people in the comments that you're keeping things small and intimate when I've been actively excluded? He didn't answer right away. Then, she's protecting the family. From what? From you making everything about you. I took a sip of coffee to stop myself from saying something I couldn't take back. I hired a lawyer because someone changed beneficiaries on my insurance policy without my permission, I said slowly. Because someone cleaned out a joint bank account I didn't know was still active. Because I wasn't notified about meetings regarding property I legally co-own. That's not making it about me. That's responding to something that's already been done to me. You should have come to me first. I did. I texted you about the LLC income stopping. You told me it was maintenance issues and it would normalize. Then I found out you were planning to refinance without telling me. We were going to tell you once we had the terms finalized. That's not how LLC agreements work. All members have to approve a refinance before it moves forward. You're not listed as an active member anymore. There it was. I never agreed to that change, I said. You were notified. To an address I haven't lived at in 3 years. That's not our fault. You should have updated your contact information. I did update it. I've been living in the same house for 2 years. The address on file with the LLC was changed by someone, and it wasn't me. He was quiet then. I could see him calculating, trying to decide what to admit and what to deny. Look, he said finally, this doesn't have to be complicated. We're trying to streamline the property management. You're welcome to stay on as a passive investor. You'll still get distributions when we have them. But the day-to-day decisions need to be made by the people actually managing the property. And that's you and Vanessa. Yes. Did Emma agree to be cut out too? Emma was never on the property. But she was supposed to be included eventually. That was the whole point. Build equity. Give both of you a head start. Plans change. Without telling me. You're not owed an explanation for every decision we make. I am when it involves property I funded and legally co-own. He stood up. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're so stuck on the technical details that you can't see the bigger picture. We're trying to move forward. You're trying to keep us stuck in the past. What past? The past where you get to control everything just because you helped out when I was starting. I'm 32 years old. I don't need my dad's permission to manage my own life. The duplex isn't just your life. It's a legal partnership, which I'm trying to restructure so we can actually use it. Use it for what? He didn't answer. He grabbed his jacket off the back of his chair. If you keep pushing this, it's going to get ugly, he said. Vanessa thinks we should just buy you out. Cut ties completely. With what money? We'll find it. There's $40,000 missing from the joint account. Where did that go? His face changed then, something colder. That was my money. It was a joint account that you never used. That doesn't make it yours. I'm done with this conversation. He started to walk past me. If you keep moving forward with the refinance without my approval, I'll file an injunction, I said. He stopped, turned back. You're really going to do this? You already did it. He stared at me for a long moment, then left without another word. I sat there finishing my coffee, hands steady, mind racing. Lisa texted from the parking lot. I saw him leave. You okay? Yeah. Meet me at home. I drove back carefully, watching for his car in case he decided to follow me. He didn't. At home, Lisa was waiting on the porch. What happened? She asked. I told her everything, the conversation, the threats, the admission about the missing account money. He admitted it, she said. Not exactly, but close enough. That's leverage. Maybe. What's the next move? I pulled out my phone and texted Patricia. He admitted the money from the joint account was taken intentionally. He called it his money from an account both our names were on. He also threatened to buy me out if I keep pushing. Recording everything now? She replied within minutes. Good. Document exact words, if you can remember them. We're going to need this. I spent the next hour writing down the entire conversation from memory. Every sentence I could recall, every expression, every pause. Lisa sat across from me. Making tea neither of us drank. Just being present while I worked through it. You know this doesn't end quietly, she said. I know. They're not going to just back down because you hired a lawyer. I know that too. So what's the end game? I looked up from my notes. I get back what's mine. They learn they can't just decide I don't matter. That's not an end game. That's a hope. Then I don't know yet, but I know I'm not standing at the counter anymore. She nodded. Good. We stayed up late, organizing documents, building timelines, connecting threads. By midnight, we had something that looked like a case. Not perfect, not airtight, but real. And that was more than I'd had a week ago. The mediation was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Monday. Patricia wanted to meet the day before to prepare. We spent Sunday afternoon in her conference room, going over documents, rehearsing questions, planning for different scenarios. They're going to try to make this emotional, she said. They'll bring up family history, your relationship with your grandson, how you're tearing the family apart. Don't engage with that. Stay focused on the documents. What if they have documents I haven't seen? Then we review them carefully before we respond. Don't react in the moment. Ask for a break if you need to. What's the best outcome here? They acknowledge the unauthorized changes, agree to correct the paperwork, and we negotiate a fair arrangement going forward. You stay as an active member of the LLC with full voting rights, or they buy you out at fair market value with an independent appraisal. And the worst outcome? They deny everything, claim you're confused or misremembering, and we learn we need to go to court to get discovery. Which one do you think is more likely? She looked at me over her reading glasses. Honestly, somewhere in the middle. They'll admit to some things, deny others, and try to negotiate from a position of mistakes were made, but let's move forward. And if I'm not okay with just moving forward, then we don't settle and we file suit. But Dan, you need to think about whether you want to be right or whether you want a resolution. Those aren't always the same thing. I didn't answer. I wasn't sure yet which one I wanted. Monday morning, I put on a suit. Not the nice one I wore to weddings, but my second best, the one I wore to property management meetings. Professional without trying too hard. Lisa offered to come with me, but I told her no. This is something I need to do alone, I said. Call me after. I will. I drove downtown and parked in the garage. The mediation was being held in a neutral office building, a conference room you could rent by the hour. Patricia met me in the lobby at 9:45. You ready? She asked. No, but let's do it anyway. We took the elevator to the third floor. The conference room was at the end of the hall, a bland corporate space with a long table, rolling chairs, and windows that overlooked the parking lot. The mediator, Richard Cahill, was already there, arranging papers and setting up a laptop. He was in his mid-60s, gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses, the kind of face that gave away nothing. He shook my hand. Mr. Greer, thank you for being here. We'll wait for the other parties, and then we'll begin. My son and Vanessa arrived at 9:58 with their attorney, the woman who'd called me about the buyout offer. Amanda Walsh was younger than I expected, mid-30s, sharp suit, expensive bag. She looked like someone who'd never lost an argument in her life. We didn't greet each other. My son and I made eye contact briefly, then looked away. Vanessa smiled at me. Not warm, just polite. The smile you'd give a stranger in an elevator. Richard started at exactly 10 a.m. Good morning. I'm Richard Cahill, and I'll be mediating today's session. Let me explain how this works. Each side will have an opportunity to present their position. I'll ask clarifying questions, then we'll work through the issues one at a time to see if we can find common ground. Everything said in this room is confidential and can't be used in court later. The goal is resolution, not litigation. Everyone understand? We all nodded. Mr. Greer, you requested this mediation. Would you like to start? Patricia nodded to me. I'd practiced this part. About 3 weeks ago, I attended a family dinner at my son's house. When I arrived, there was no place setting for me. I was told to sit at the kitchen counter or use a folding chair. That felt like a message, that I wasn't really part of the family anymore. After that dinner, I started reviewing financial documents related to shared accounts and property. What I found concerned me. I pulled out the first document and slid it across the table. The beneficiary change form for my life insurance policy. This form was filed 8 months ago, changing the beneficiary designation on my policy. I never authorized this change. The signature looks similar to mine, but the IP address it was filed from isn't connected to me or any computer I own. Amanda picked up the document and reviewed it. She whispered something to my son. He whispered back. Next, I said, sliding over the LLC paperwork, I discovered that my status in the property LLC was changed from active to passive member. The notice was sent to an address I haven't lived at in 3 years. I never received it and never agreed to the change. Another document, the joint bank account statements. This account has been emptied over the past 18 months, 47 transactions totaling over $40,000. I didn't authorize any of these withdrawals. I laid out 3 more documents, the brokerage account authorization, the retirement account beneficiary change, the email redirect notifications. Each of these changes was made without my knowledge or consent. Individually, they might look like mistakes. Together, they look like a pattern. Richard made notes while I spoke. When I finished, he looked at my son. Mr. Greer, would you like to respond? My son cleared his throat. He looked nervous. Good. My father and I have had communication issues for a while. Things have been difficult since my parents' divorce. I think there's been some confusion about paperwork and who was supposed to handle what. Confusion, Patricia said. That's your explanation? Amanda held up a hand. Let him finish. My son continued. The beneficiary change on the life insurance. I asked my dad about updating that months ago. He said it was fine. I thought he'd taken care of it himself. I never said that, I interrupted. Richard raised a hand. Mr. Greer, you'll have a chance to respond. Let him finish. The LLC status change. That was recommended by our accountant for tax purposes. It made sense to restructure so that active management was separate from passive investment. My dad hasn't been involved in the day-to-day operations of the property for years. Because I was never told there were operations to be involved in, I said. Richard looked at me. I need you to let him finish, Mr. Greer. I sat back. The joint account, that was money my dad had essentially given me years ago. It was sitting there unused. I didn't think there'd be a problem with using it. You didn't think, or you didn't ask, Patricia said. Amanda jumped in. My clients believed these were appropriate actions taken in good faith. If there was confusion about authorization, we're prepared to work through that. Good faith, I said. You called my employer and told him I was acting erratically. My son's face changed. I was worried about you. You tried to sabotage my job. That's not what happened. Gentlemen, Richard said firmly, this is not productive. Let's focus on the documents. Amanda pulled out a folder. We have some documentation that might clarify things. She slid papers across the table, emails, text messages, screenshots. These are communications between my clients and Mr. Greer over the past 2 years. You'll see discussions about the property, about financial matters, about updating paperwork. There's a pattern of Mr. Greer being unresponsive or dismissive when asked about these issues. Patricia took the documents and reviewed them. Her expression didn't change, but I could feel her tension. These are taken out of context, she said finally. Are they? Amanda asked. Because they show a pattern of Mr. Greer not engaging when asked about important matters. My clients tried to communicate. He didn't respond. They moved forward because decisions needed to be made. That's not accurate, I said. Richard held up his hand. Let's take a 15-minute break. I'd like to speak with each party separately. We filed out into the hallway. Patricia pulled me into an empty conference room down the hall. Those emails, she said. Did you send those responses? Some of them, but they're cherry-picked. They're making it look like I was ignoring them, when really I was just responding to specific questions. We need to counter this. Do you have the full email threads? On my phone, maybe. I'd have to look. Do it, now. I pulled out my phone and started searching. Some of the emails Amanda had shown were real, brief responses I'd sent when my son asked about property issues. But the context was missing. There were follow-up emails where I'd asked for more information and never gotten answers. There were threads where I'd proposed meetings that never happened. I forwarded everything to Patricia. "This helps," she said, "but they're playing a smart game. They're making you look difficult." "I'm not difficult. I'm asking legitimate questions." "I know, but that's not how they're framing it." Richard called us back after 20 minutes. We sat down again. He looked serious. "I've spoken with both parties separately. Here's what I'm seeing. There are legitimate concerns on both sides. Mr. Greer has questions about authorization and notification. Mr. Greer's son and his spouse have concerns about communication and decision-making efficiency. The question is whether we can find middle ground." "What do you propose?" Patricia asked. "A structured agreement. Mr. Greer's membership status in the LLC is restored to active with full voting rights. In exchange, all parties agree to formalize communication procedures, written notices, documented votes, regular meetings. The joint bank account is closed, and the remaining balance is split according to the original ownership percentage. The beneficiary issues are corrected with updated forms signed by all parties." "And the money that was already taken from the joint account?" I asked. Richard looked at my son. "That will need to be addressed." Amanda whispered to my son and Vanessa. The conversation went on for a full minute. Finally, my son looked up. "I'm willing to return half of what was withdrawn," he said. "Half?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I used that money for property expenses, repairs, taxes, insurance. It went back into maintaining the asset we jointly own." "Then you have receipts," Patricia said. Silence. "You have receipts showing where that $40,000 went," she repeated. "I'd have to pull together the records," my son said. "You mean you don't have them?" I said. "I didn't keep every receipt from the past 2 years." "Convenient," Amanda cut in. "My client is willing to make a good faith payment of $20,000 to resolve this issue. That's a generous offer given the circumstances." "It's half of what was taken," Patricia said. "And only if we can't prove where the money actually went." "Which is why we're offering to compromise," Amanda said. Richard made notes. "Let's table the account issue for now and focus on the LLC. Can we agree to the structure I proposed?" Patricia looked at me. I nodded. "Yes," she said. "But we need it in writing. Full restoration of active status, documented procedures, specific timelines for notices and meetings." "Agreed," Amanda said. We spent the next hour hammering out the details. What constituted proper notice? How voting would work? What decisions required unanimous consent versus majority? It was tedious and technical and absolutely necessary. At 1:30 p.m., Richard called for a lunch break. "We're making progress," he said. "Take an hour. Come back ready to finalize." I went to a sandwich shop across the street with Patricia. We sat in a booth near the back. "What do you think?" I asked. "I think they're admitting to less than what actually happened, but we're getting something. The LLC restoration is significant. That gives you legal standing to challenge future decisions." "And the bank account?" $20,000 is better than nothing. But we should push for an audit of the property expenses. If we can show the money didn't go where he claims, we have grounds for more." "He's never going to agree to an audit." "Then we make that a condition of settlement. Either he proves the money went to legitimate property expenses or he pays back the full amount." We finished lunch and went back. The afternoon session was harder. Every detail became a negotiation. Who would pay for the independent appraisal if we needed one later? How often would financial statements be distributed? What happened if there was a deadlock vote? At 4 p.m., Vanessa spoke for the first time since the session started. "Can I say something?" Richard nodded. She looked directly at me. "Dan, I want you to know this was never personal. We weren't trying to hurt you. We were trying to manage a complicated situation. Your son loves you, so do the kids. But this has been really hard on all of us. If we can find a way to move forward and rebuild the relationship, I think that's what everyone wants." It was a good performance. Her voice was steady, her expression sincere. If I didn't know better, I might have believed her, but I'd seen the Instagram posts. I'd heard the group chat where my name was changed. I'd stood at that kitchen counter eating dinner while she smiled and took pictures. "What I want," I said slowly, "is to stop being treated like I'm optional. I'm not asking to control everything. I'm asking to be informed and included in decisions that legally require my involvement. That's not complicated." "You're right," she said, "and we can do better. I think we all can." Richard seized the moment. "So, we're agreed? Full LLC restoration, documented procedures, and a good faith payment to resolve the account issue? Amanda looked at my son and Vanessa. They both nodded. $20,000, paid within 30 days, Amanda said. Plus a full accounting of property expenses for the past 2 years, Patricia added. Provided within 60 days. If the accounting shows improper use of funds, the remaining amount is due within 30 days of that finding. Agreed? Amanda said after another whispered consultation. Richard drafted the agreement. It took another hour. We all signed. I walked out of that building at 6:15 p.m. with a piece of paper that said I mattered, legally speaking. It should have felt like a win. It felt like ash. Patricia walked me to my car. You did good in there, she said. Did I? You held your ground. You got your rights restored. That's not nothing. It's also not everything. No, but it's a start. I drove home. Lisa was waiting on the porch with a beer. How'd it go? We settled. I got the LLC status back. They're paying $20,000 for the account. We have to do an accounting of expenses. That's good, right? I guess. She handed me the beer. But I don't believe for a second they're done. This was them backing down because they got caught, not because they think they were wrong. So what happens next? I wait for the accounting. I make sure they follow the procedures we set up. I stay vigilant. That sounds exhausting. It is. We sat there on the porch as the sun went down, not talking, just being together while I processed what had happened. Around 8 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from my son. I meant what I said today. I love you. Let's try to make this work. I stared at it for a long time. Then I texted back, sure. That was all I had energy for.